Good afternoon, business student. So here we are again. So for my lower sixth, we are currently doing leadership styles. Now, transformational leadership is not really a leadership style, and it is linked to a Theme 3 unit, but it's worthwhile introducing this concept in the lower sixth, and then you can learn about it again when you go into the upper sixth. For the upper sixth currently revising, transformational leadership has come up once before in past papers. So you can go and do that past paper question if you haven't already done it. Most of you should have. And hopefully this is useful as well. So both lower sixth and upper sixth this video. So in the Times today, so you can go and read the article there. We've got some information about Monsoon or the owners of Monsoon. So it's fast fashion. It's in context with paper 3. 2024's research theme, the clothing sector as well. So lots of useful information here and information about maybe a year ago, as in this case study as well. Let's face it, that's when they wrote the paper. So here's the 12 marker that I've sort of adapted from the past paper question to this article. So as always in class, we will quickly plan the question before reading the case study, because if we plan the question before we go to the case study, we know what we're looking for. So assess whether the transformational leadership, so that's our knowledge, that's our definition, shown by Nick Stowe, is the main cause of Adena Brands' performance. So the hook is main cause, linked to that. So it's a normal structure of these things. Of this, is it main cause on performance? So we are looking for evidence in the case study of performance. This could be sales, this could be market share, this could be profitability. It could be a whole raft of things. So we're looking for example of transformational, things that are changing. So the transformational leadership will obviously start with the definition, but it's really that leader that is taking some of those tough decisions, working with teams, identifying improvements in the business, directly linked to the aims and objectives of the business. You need to think about in the case study, are these short term, medium or longer term? And remember, this is a 12 marker, so we're going to write a bit of a MOPS to support our judgment anyway, which is going to be a bit future orientated. So maybe some of our points could be focused on the here and now, and then we could think about stuff in the future as well. Normal 12 mark sort of stuff. So here is the case study, and I've not adapted it at all. So you've got to pause the video and look for examples of performance and this transformational leadership. Because remember, we're looking for to define that in context if possible. Main cause is the hook. And remember, we're looking for performance there. So quickly skimming through this, we can see fell by 4%. Okay, so find a couple of pieces of evidence. P, however, A, J, MOPS. Pause the video. Did you pause the video? Very much doubt it. We'll talk about some of the evidence. Now, if we were in the exam paper, before you go to the case study, probably the first thing you're going to do is you're going to define the key term. So this video is also to talk about structure of 12 markers, even though I know you all know how to do them, and also thinking about how to best use our time. Now, I don't want to read a case study, then come back and plan my answer, and then maybe pop back to the case study to identify some evidence because I've forgotten what I've read. Nobody's got time for that. So we will always start with a quick plan. We're going to define this main cause. We've done this is the third time already, cause of their performance. Okay, so we're looking for that hook. Chain of arguments need to end with something to do with performance, positive or negative. And it could be in the here and now, it could be something in the past, it could be something in the future if we were thinking about forecasting. But it all starts with a good definition. We write a reasonable definition. This is not the only definition that's out there. But what the definition does is it gives you structure. Number one, at least you're answering the question. Number two, now you stop writing. You've written the definition, you go to the case study. You know what your arguments are because we're thinking about implement necessary changes. Okay, inspiring the teams, motivation, morale, performance through a strategic vision. What is the strategic vision in the case study? Is there evidence of collaborative efforts, for example? So whatever the definition is that you remember to write about transformational leadership, if you write it first, then go to the case study, at least you know what you're looking for. Find yourself 2 to 4 pieces of evidence, and remember we're looking for pros and cons for balance. Everything needs to be contextualised, including your conclusion and justification, and there we go. So that's a reasonable definition, bit wordy, but that's the way it rolls. Now I've put the P structure in brackets here for you. You're not going to write this in the exam, but I just wanted to bring your attention to it. I've also underlined when I've used the hook in the question. Now, again, I probably wouldn't do this in the exam. If I was going to underline anything, it'd be those chains of argument to make sure I'm getting at least 3. But you've got to make sure you're reflecting back on the hook. Now, sometimes we will put that at the end of a chain of argument. Sometimes maybe it's at the beginning of our argument. And here the point is this transformational leadership might be the main factor. Well, the question's asking us, is it main or is it not main? So let's make sure we're directly answering the question, hey? Always quite helpful. Stowe's leadership involves strategic restructuring and ongoing investment. That's knowledge in technology and product quality. Now, I could have put fashion products there for a bit more context, but we've got some context already, which are typical traits of transformational leadership. You'll see how I've linked it back to the definition in transformational leadership. I've gone to the case study and I'm looking at this strategic restructuring, and if we look up here, we've got strategic vision even just in the definition, sort of a rework, which is easy to do. Stowe is looking to improve organisational performance and adaptability by focusing on better fashion products. Dropped fashion in this time. Didn't want that abstract products in there a couple of times. My students would tell me off. And their expanded distribution, more context. And we've explained it. I've not underlined the chains of argument. There's probably 3 to 5. And there's probably another one in the evidence. Now, we're not just going to drop evidence in there. We're going to interpret it if we want to get to higher level marks. So, Stowe's assertion, don't like that word, but it is sort of, I don't like it because it's in the level 2 standards, by the way, and level 2 scares me, has positioned the company well, nice quotation marks to bring the examiner's attention to it. Here's the interpretation, suggests his visionary approach aimed at long-term stability. Okay, so there's an interpretation of where they are and the link into his transformational management. We obviously need a counter argument for this point. So, however, the company's recent difficult trading, it's nice to have a bit of evidence in your howevers as well. If you're not using evidence in your howevers, they must be contextualized, or they don't really count that much. Okay, so context is king. Context is king. I know Drucker used to say cash is king, but in essays, it's context is king. Might not be mainly due. Look at the link to the hook. To his leadership qualities, as external economic pressures such as inflation and cost of living crisis heavily impacted sales. This is more application. This has been lifted from the case study. There's actually 2 bits of evidence in this, however. And by using context, it sort of writes itself. I'm not writing any more than I usually would, but it's contextualized to death, which hopefully influences the examiner to give you high level marks. While transformational leadership is seen in the case study, it is not the main cause of Adena Brands' current performance. Okay, straight in there with a counter argument. And if you look here, this is, do we want balance? We want perfect balance would be lovely. And I think this structure helps us to get actually really good balance. We've got an in favour with a counter argument negative, and then we've got a whole P paragraph there about a negative, and we all know what's coming after the paragraph. Okay, so external factors, cost of living crisis, weaker online sales, a little bit of a repeat of the cost of living crisis from up here, but it's fine. And we've got weaker online sales, which are from the case study, and unseasonable weather. Okay, I don't think that's anything to do with Stowe's leadership here, have impacted the company's performance. These factors are largely beyond the control of any leadership approach and have directly led to a decrease in consumer spending and increased operational costs. Okay, remember, the question is about performance, and these are some of those KPIs that the managers might be measuring. Okay, there's key performance indicators. And now we're going to make sure we've got some evidence in there. There's already evidence in there, but we want a bit of a 5 chains of argument if possible. There's at least 3 here, maybe more, and there's probably some more here, hey? The company acknowledged these challenges, stating the group's sales and costs were impacted by a more challenging environment in 2023. Okay, it's in the case study. It tells you that these external factors, these PESEL factors, are actually impacting the business. Yes, you can try and adapt to these, but the question is main cause of their performance. Okay, I'm thinking that's out of Stowe's leadership remit. However, leadership's role in navigating these external challenges cannot be ignored, as strategic responses to such crises can mitigate negative impacts. Now, at this point, some of my students would probably be heckling, and quite rightly so. This is a very much knowledge-based, however. It is a counter-argument, but where's the context? This could literally be about Mackie D's. So where is the context? It's actually quite a lazy however. So we need to think about how could we enhance that? Well, dropping a quote into the middle of it, making sure it's about the fashion sector. Yeah, so we should be making sure that everything is contextualized, and this, however, is not what we would expect in something that's top level 4. Okay, the rest of it I think is pretty good, but this I'm a little bit sad over, or maybe I'll put it in there to prove a point that we need to contextualize. In conclusion, sorry about the capitalization. The transformational leadership of Nick Stowe is not the main cause of the company's performance. I'm going to put an A next to that because we've answered the question. As external economic factors and market conditions seem to have played a more significant role in shaping the company's financial outcomes. So more significant, I've got main up there, so it's not quite exactly the same, but actually they're more significant. That's sort of my justification. Now, as long as it's in context, we'll be okay. So I'll finish the sentence. As seen by the mix of lower demand driven by the cost of living crisis, weaker online sales post-COVID. Now, I've already used that and that, but I hadn't used that. Now, I think if I just reuse the evidence, probably get away with it for a justification, but actually post-COVID is another bit of external information because we've got that pandemic, which last time I checked, I've not met Nick Stowe before, but I don't think he was anything to do with COVID, okay? And none of us saw it coming. Looking ahead, what a lovely future-orientated statement. Let's hope this reinforces this justification, because this is a sort of repeat with a bit more evidence. Looking ahead, the strategic decisions influenced by Stowe's leadership will need to adapt to changes in the market, possibly requiring shifts in the business model or products offering, consumer behaviour and economic situations evolve, meaning his transformational leadership might become more important to the firm's future. That's crap. That is absolute waffle. Now, personally, should have stopped writing there. What we say in class is, if you can't write a MOP supporting statement that is in context and you're just going to waffle through your MOPs, don't bother writing one, because you're probably at this stage not going to get any marks for it. So what we have here is we've ended a perfectly good answer, not perfect actually, but a reasonable answer. And at the end here, we've written 3 lines of waffle. Now, hopefully it wouldn't have taken the student too long to write it. If it has, let's hope they've got enough time to finish the 20 marker, hey? So if you can't think of writing something in context at the end of this essay, my advice is don't bother writing it, because the last thing we want is for you to waste time on something that maybe you don't get any marks for. We've already got economic situations in there. We've talked about consumer behaviour. We've talked a little bit about other things that are there as well. And this is just not very good. So EBIs would be not to write that, unless I'm going to put some context in there to support it. And EBIs would be making sure that I've got contextualisation throughout. Now, remember, we're not aiming for perfection. We're aiming to finish the paper and get level 4 in all of our essays. Or if it's paper 3, level 3 in that essay and level 4 in all the others. Hopefully get full marks on your 4 markers in paper 1 and paper 2. So if we think about level 4 here, is it accurate? Is the knowledge okay? Is it supported throughout by relevant and effective use of business behaviour? I think so. Okay, not quite sure there, but I'm not going to penalise it too much. A coherent and logical chain of reasoning, causes and effects, and more importantly, it comes back to the hook in the question about those contextual links into performance. So I think we've probably nailed that one. Is it balanced? You bet your bottom dollar it is. Have we got wide-ranging and well contextualised? Well, I am going to pick myself up on this, to be honest with you, because I've said that's an EBI. So realistically, is it perfect? I don't think so, because it's, and also that word throughout, I'm not comfortable with that, with this essay, because actually it's not perfect. And compelling arguments, supported judgment. This could be better. It's a bit of a repeat. Is it supported? I think it is supported. It's not a bad answer. I think it's level 4. You can decide if it's 9 or 10. I don't think it's 11 or 12 for the reasons that I've mentioned already. Hopefully that was useful. Why don't you write your own answer, see if you can improve on this, and remember, if you write your definition, oops, not there, if you write your definition first before going to the case study, your definition gives you the structure to understand what you're looking for. Once you find the evidence, stop reading, go and write your essay. Okay, hopefully that's useful. Have a lovely afternoon.